The Garden of Eden is presented as the place of perfection, that perfect world which existed prior to its being spoiled. And its being spoiled, actually, as it is described later on, is simply a presentation of the real world. The real world is that which is described at the end of chapter 3. But there is this presentation of an idealized world which was perfect. But now if we read the description of the garden and compare it to other texts, and I picked out a text from the Ugaritic literature, which I will explain. The city of Ugarit is a city that was situated on the shores of the Mediterranean in northern Syria. It flourished and existed until about 1200 BC, when it fell as a victim of one of the battles of the Trojan War. And actually the Greeks who attacked Troy also attacked Ugarit, and now we have found letters written by the king of Ugarit which refers to the battles that were taking place, and actually refers, some of the letters actually say, our cities are burned and being consumed by fire as the enemy approaches, and he mentions the name of one of the Greek states that was fighting in the Trojan War. So we know the history of Ugarit. Now, Ugarit fell and was buried until about 1930 when it was discovered. When they discovered Ugarit, they discovered the writings of the Ugaritic people in two sets of writings. The first set of writings they discovered were the poetic mythology, that is, the religious literature. The other set of writings they discovered were diplomatic correspondence, letters sent. So from these two sets of writings, we get a very interesting picture of the civilization of Ugarit, which was a very highly developed city of the Canaanite Confederation, all of these cities along the coast that were dominated by the Canaanites, who are the Phoenicians, of which Tyre was the dominant city for many centuries. Now, in these Ugaritic texts, which were written in a language which is very similar to Biblical Hebrew, similar but older. So if the Ugaritic language is, let's say, 1500 BC, and the biblical language is 1200 BC, the distance between them in time is a few centuries. And I would say that Ugaritic is to Biblical Hebrew something like Shakespeare is to modern English. Same language and yet different. In fact, so different that there are many words that we don't quite understand and have different meanings. But that's the nature of a language over the course of 400 or 500 years. In the case of Ugarit, we have an older version of the language which we know as Biblical Hebrew. Phoenician of the 11th century and the 10th century BC is the same as Biblical Hebrew. Phoenician of the Roman period is quite different from Biblical Hebrew. Still the same language, but already different. And we have inscriptions in the Phoenician language dating from the Roman period. Now, in the legends of Ugarit, in these mythological poetry, there are many passages which are almost identical. Not the language, of course. The Greek and Ugaritic are quite different. But the ideas of Phoenician mythology coincide with the ideas of Greek mythology. They both have the same pagan approach to the problems of mythology. Now, one of the interesting points they make is that God, and the word for the father of the gods in Ugaritic is the same as the word for God in the Bible. It is El. El is the father of the gods in Phoenician, in Ugaritic. Baal is the god who is the son of El, but the Lord of heaven, meaning rain, thunder, lightning, all the booming stuff that comes from above. So it is Baal who brings the rain down or sends the rain down. Therefore he is called the one who fertilizes the earth or puts life into it by his watering of the earth, and therefore he is called Baal in the sense of husband of the earth. You see how all these things are brought together. Because the word Baal in Biblical Hebrew means master, boss, husband. But the same name in Phoenician means all of these things plus the god of thunder, lightning, and heaven. So you have these figures, and El is the father of the gods. Now, El is described as sitting on a throne from under whose foundation all the great waters of the earth flow out. So he is called the father who sits on the fountains of the great deep, and the water flows out from them. Now, I'm bringing this in as one of the elements of the portrayal of what the Garden of Eden is.